Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we are diving into a place that is so much more than just a spot on a map. We're talking about Madhya Pradesh, literally the beating heart of India. We're going to explore how this specific region became the ultimate historical stage, a total crossroads where powerful empires collided, blended together, and completely transformed over 1,000 chaotic years. We'll track exactly how spiritual builders, fierce tribal warriors, and, ruthless sultans all left their permanent mark here. To really grasp how awe-inspiring this place is, just listen to the first Mughal emperor, Babur. Here's how he described the massive Gwalior fort. The pearl amongst the fortresses of Hind, and not even the winds could touch its masts. I mean, think about that. When a guy who literally conquered vast chunks of the world stops dead in his tracks to admire your building, you know you're dealing with something absolutely extraordinary. So this brings us to the big, overarching question for today's explainer. What actually makes central India the ultimate battleground of empires? To answer that, we need to zoom out. We're going to trace the macro narrative of a region that evolved over a wildly chaotic, violently contested, but culturally brilliant 1,000-year period. Section 1. The Heart of Empires. Section 2. Temples of Cosmic Harmony. All right, our first deep dive drops us right into the early medieval period, so roughly 800 to 1200 CE, with the Chandela dynasty. And the architectural DNA of their famous Khajuraho temples, it is just fascinating. The builders used this geometric grid plan called the Vastu Purusha Mandala. Basically, it's the symmetrical, concentrically layered square design, and the whole point was to perfectly link the human realm with the divine. But here's the truly mind-blowing part. The artisans built these huge soaring spires by stacking massive sandstone megaliths, some weighing up to 20 tons, with absolutely zero mortar. None. They use these super precise mortise and tenon joints instead. So these incredibly intricate temples are literally held together by nothing but gravity and absolute mathematical perfection. Now, whenever Khajuraho comes up, people usually immediately think of one very specific thing. But that popular perception totally ignores a massive historical reality, a reality best summed up by the number 10%. Yup, less than 10% of Khajuraho's thousands of carvings are actually erotic. The vast, overwhelming majority, like the other 90%, are just these stunning snapshots of 10th century daily life. You've got farmers, musicians, women putting on makeup, and it's all seamlessly blended with these really profound spiritual themes, like moksha, the final release and reunion of the human essence with nature. And this is crucial. These monuments weren't just built for one single faith. They represent a super harmonious tradition honoring both Hindu deities and Jain Tirthankaras, right there, side by side. This perfectly shows off the lasting spiritual power of the site. In fact, the famous 14th century Moroccan traveler Ibn Battuta wrote about this. He noted that even way later, in 1335 CE, long after the Delhi Sultanate had taken control of the region, he still saw ascetics and yogis absolutely thriving at Khajuraho. He wrote, they had matted locks as long as their bodies. It remained this living, mystical hub where knowledge was actively exchanged, totally transcending all the violent political upheavals happening right outside. Section 3. The Gibraltar of India. So as the political climate shifted, the architecture had to physically shift too. We go from the Khajuraho temples, which were open, spiritually inviting, and built on flat land to promote cosmic harmony, straight to Gwalior Fort. And Gwalior? It is a beast, built right on top of the steep, 342-foot-high sandstone cliff with insanely thick defensive walls. We're moving from this era of early medieval spirituality into a really dark, chaotic period of constant invasion. In this new world, having an impregnable military fortress was basically an empire's only insurance policy. And make no mistake, Gwalior Fort was the ultimate prize in central India. It got passed around a lot. First, you had the Tamaras in the 15th century. Raja Man Singh turned it into this incredible cultural beacon by building the stunningly painted Manmandir Palace. But then the Mughals sweep in, conquer it, and completely repurpose the place. They used those huge, impregnable walls to turn it into a strategic military base, and honestly, a pretty grim political prison for high-profile captives. Fast forward a bit, and the Maratha Scindia dynasty takes over, doing all these vital administrative renovations that practically drag the fort into the modern era. So you have this one massive structure being heavily used by totally different empires for completely different reasons. Oh, but before we move on from Gwalior, there is this incredible, easily missed little detail. Tucked away, right on the path up to the fort, is the Chaturbhuj Temple. People often call it the Zero Temple. It's about 1,500 years old, and get this, carved right into its stone walls is the world's second oldest known record of the numeral zero used with a place value. No way, right? It's just a fantastic little fact to keep in your back pocket. It reminds us that beneath all those layers of medieval warfare, this region has some incredibly deep, ancient intellectual roots. Section 4. Sultans, Queens, and Marathas. Okay, so the middle centuries in Madhya Pradesh were an absolute whirlwind of fragmented power. You had sultans, queens, Marathas, all of them fighting tooth and nail for absolute control. Just look at the timeline. In 1206, the Delhi Sultanate pushes south and captures Gwalior. Then, by 1401, Delhi starts to weaken, so the Malwa Sultanate boldly declares independence and sets up this really rich regional power hub in Mandu. Fast forward to 1561, and the mighty Mughal Empire under Akbar just sweeps in and annexes Malwa. Only 3 years after that, in 1564, we get the fateful Battle of Narai. Then, jumping way ahead to 1761, the devastating Third Battle of Panipat temporarily knocks the wind out of the rising Maratha Empire. Power was just changing hands at an astonishing, often violent pace. But the absolutely crucial point we need to focus on here is the power of the indigenous rulers, which often gets completely overlooked. Take the Gond kingdoms. They were highly sophisticated administrators. From the 14th all the way to the 18th century, they championed local self-governance and even engineered these super advanced irrigation systems. And they were fierce warriors. Remember that 1564 Battle of Narai we just talked about? Well, the Gond queen Rani Durgavati literally stood toe-to-toe with a massive Mughal army. When she was facing certain defeat, she chose death over dishonor. She left behind this legacy of immense bravery that people still revere today. Eventually, after the Mughals declined, the Marathas stepped right in to fill that vacuum. During the 18th century, Maratha powers, like the Scindias and the Holkars, they didn't just conquer territory, they really governed it. They set up these incredibly robust administrative and revenue systems. Actually, those systems were so rock solid that they profoundly influenced how the British ended up administering central India much later. Section 5. A Legacy in Stone. So, after 1,000 years of clashing swords and constantly shifting borders, what's the physical result of being in this immense historical pressure cooker? Well, to answer that, you really just have to look at the Talika Mandir. It's an 8th century temple located right smack inside Gwalior Fort, and it is an absolute marvel. Why? Because it takes a South Indian barrel vaulted roof and just effortlessly merges it right onto a North Indian Nagara masonry tower. It's like a giant puzzle piece from the south fitting perfectly into the north. It is the literal physical blending of different cultures that you only ever see at a true geographic and political crossroads. And you can see these architectural echoes ringing out across the entire state. Over in Mandu, the stunning white marble of Hoshang Shah's tomb actually directly inspired the design of the Taj Mahal. At Khajuraho, as we saw, Hindu and Jain temples shared the exact same complex in total harmony. And bouncing back to Gwalior Fort, there's the beautiful Gurdwara Data Bandi Chor. It marks the exact spot where the 6th Sikh guru, Guru Hargobind, was imprisoned by the Mughals, and where he famously secured the release of 52 fellow captive kings. Hindu, Jain, Muslim, Sikh, all of their histories are just intricately, beautifully woven together right into the stones of Madhya Pradesh. Which really leaves us with this final lingering thought. If these magnificent, ancient stones could speak, what other forgotten empires, unsung heroes, or totally lost cultures would we uncover right here in the heart of India? I highly encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning about this absolutely fascinating region. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer today. Until next time, keep that curiosity alive.